arising from Wainwright Palmer's misdeeds. The manager, his eyes wild and his thin hair dishevelled from his tearing at it, ordered them to get the chief inspector on the telephone. "Hello, de Lacy. How are you?" came a cheerful voice from head office. "I'm not so well," answered the manager, and fell unconscious under the desk. The chief inspector arrived later that day, and this time he was far from cheerful. "Where does the man live, this Oates fellow?" He spoke as though poor Finlow Oates had himself caused all the trouble. "Netherby, about 5 miles away in the country." They had given Mr. de Lacy more stimulant, so much in fact that he was a bit truculent. "Why wasn't somebody sent out to see him when he didn't answer letters?" "So busy and confused by all the fuss, all the worry of the investigations. I quite overlooked it, and if I overlook anything, nobody else finds it. I'm not getting the support I ought to get from Kilgrass," he said between paroxysms of nervous coughing. Very serious indeed. £7,000. Whatever were you thinking of?" The chief inspector might have thought Mr. de Lacy had himself put pen to paper and forged Oates's name. "Send a man out right away." They rang for the assistant manager, Mr. Kilgrass, who entered braced for the fray. He was a clean, bald, tubby man with the folds of his heavy face set in lines of irony and disappointment. He objected to being assistant to a manager like Mr. de Lacy. He felt he could manage better himself. They told Mr. Kilgrass the nature of his mission, waved aside his expostulations, and meticulously instructed him what to say and do, like potentates sending an emissary into a distant alien land. "We depend on you." Mr. Kilgrass took a taxi in a show of efficient haste. The bank can stand it, he thought to himself, and after all he was in a hurry. Netherby is a small village which once boasted little else than a pub for refreshment, stocks for evildoers, a fine church, and a few workmen's cottages. Now, however, it had grown into a dormitory for Rodley's professional and moneyed classes. Large imitation period houses had sprung up solidly in the middle of the village, surrounded by an outer, more attenuated ring of pseudo-manors and sham castles in magnificent bad taste, like their owners. Most of the wealthy elders of the community moved about it in large opulent cars, and their offspring tore about it in racing models. Mr. Kilgrass, after a pint and a few inquiries at the inn, found that Mr. Finlow Oates lived in a bungalow named, for some obscure reason, Shenandoah, and situated about a mile outside the village in a country lane, along with 3 or 4 similar houses built by a speculative builder. Shenandoah was closed. Nobody answered Mr. Kilgrass's knock. He looked around the place. It was a rustic brick structure, 2 living rooms, 2 bedrooms, and the usual offices. Behind, a small orchard and a vegetable patch. In front, what must once have been a very pretty lawn and garden, but now it was a wilderness. The grass was like a meadow, with coltsfoot and plantain romping merrily all over it. The round rose bed in the centre was running riot and sprouting burdock. The flowers on the borders had gone wild, and were choking under the weight of stitchwort and coarse grass. Mr. Kilgrass was a man of imagination. He had read books by Walter de la Mare, Sheridan Le Fanu, and Ambrose Bierce. He believed in the benevolence or malevolence of bricks and mortar, and knew that houses bore personalities endowed upon them by powerful occupants. There, on a hot afternoon, with no birds singing, with not a soul about but the taxi-driver snoozing in his cab, a fag dangling from his mouth, with somewhere the sound of water running from a pipe and falling from a height, he felt that the house was watching him, and that the forsaken, desolate garden was trying to tell him something he could not interpret. He shook off the feeling, remembering that he was expected to return with an answer of some practical kind. He took the liberty, not without looking furtively around to make sure he wasn't overlooked, of peeping in through the windows. The living rooms were tidy.